Welcome to Ming Presents The Re-Up, a conversation with the artistic mind.
There we go. There we go. Man, I just felt my age right there. I was like, how do you do this? What button do you press? Jesus, off to a good start already.
That's what she said. So, of course, as soon as we start doing this, the neighbors are trimming their bushes. So even though, I'm trying to do best with this internet situation that I'm having over here, I've got these fools over here trimming their hedges. So,
That's fine. I didn't even have a stand. So you're literally stacked on books in between on a stool with the charger that's holding it in between the top of the stool and the bottom of the charger with the battery. So we're just kind of making it work as we go along. But that's sort of been our ethos since we've met. So.
Yeah. It's all duct tape. The whole thing is all duct tape. Do you remember how we met? Because I know that we chatted about this a little bit yesterday. Big Little Jeffrey, who was our tour manager, introduced us when I was with MING+FS, but I don't remember specifically. You were saying I rolled up on you hard with some crazy video, whatever, blah blah blah.
We were at it was on the Lancey, I think was the name of the place. It's where they do Funbox Mondays now. And you guys had a show, and I had reached out to Jeffrey about trying to link up with you guys because obviously fan first. I liked where you guys were at with the hip hop, drum and bass, and turntablism all together. And I was like, you know what? Let's try this thing called the internet and email and see if this works. Let's see if they'll reach out and come back. So I shot Jeffrey an email, and he got back to me almost instantaneously. It was pretty fast. And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, I'll come out and check out the show. And he comped me. I came up, and I had, at the time, I was going to these trade shows called ASR for skateboarding when I was trying to figure out, could I make a living doing this DJ thing? Did I want to try to do something in skateboarding? And long story short, we just kind of threw it out there and had some fun. And basically the idea was to come, show you this video, make you want me to go on the road with you. So I didn't know how it was going to work, but that was my goal at the end. And I think between enough drinks, enough of me being insane and just off the fucking books, you guys were like, you know what? Yeah. Do you want to come on tour with us? So here we are.
I know. I mean, that's kind of the, that's the magic of having the balls to reach out to people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of how many people in my career I connected with because I was the only person to make the effort to, to reach out and be like, hey, I want to do that.
Yeah. How do you do it? What's it? I need a mentor to teach me. And that's I think one of the biggest things in anything that anyone's ever wanted to do. It's so much easier now. It was so terrifying to actually have to go up to that person. I've met a lot of idols and people that I've wanted to talk to in the 90s, and it was so much more terrifying because you're at the club or you're on the subway. It just wasn't like now where it's you like their photo and you DM them and you're like, yo, I make music. Check out my SoundCloud page. It was I had to physically give you something. First off, I had to hope that you would, one, listen to my rant while I was half wasted or in the bag, probably this close talking to you in the face or in the ear because it was such a loud club. And then number two, you had to give them this physical article that they were going to have to hold on for the entire night until they got home. And then three, they had to actually remember the conversation, pull said tape out or video and actually hold on to that, which was another thing where you're like, come on. So
do you remember, I don't know if were you on the tour, which tour were you on, but the one where we would do Smash for Trash with the demos that people would give us?
Yes. So I went on two. It was that and the Back to One. So it was
we did two. Right, you did two. Right. So the one thing that people used to do when we were on tour was they would want to give us Dave rolled up on us and Chopper rolled up on us and gave us this whatever. But this is New York, so it's a little bit different because in New York we just brought it home.
Yeah.
But when we were on tour, people would want to give us their demos and give us their stuff. And I used to honestly say to them, here's the deal. If you give this to me now, we're going to put it on in the van or in the camper and we're going to listen to it. You've got about 15 seconds. And if it's not hot, we're going to just chuck it out the window.
Yeah.
We're Smash or Trash. We're going to just smash it and it's going to be gone. You're better off waiting till we get off tour or contact Jeffrey and send us that thing because we'll sit down and actually listen through the songs that you send. I'm like, but in the van, like, I got like a bunch of smelly dudes in there. We don't want to listen to your crappy music, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've limited your chances down to like 1% of 1%, and then people would give it to us anyway, and then we would just destroy them.
It was a heavy crew too, because it was Karsh Kale.
Yeah.
If I'm
Oh, you were on that
pronouncing his
tour.
name right. Yep, and then Napoleon Maddox was with us too. We had a pretty it was a heavy crew, and especially the first time going on the road with like a group, I was like, holy shit, there's all these people, and it's so much fun when you get to go behind the scenes and actually see the day to day, because it's not as like glamour and glitz as it is now. It was like what I learned from you was pretty much put on the rider what you're going to need for the day after tomorrow. So if it was like clean shirts, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever you wanted, you put that on your rider so you have it for the next stop. So when you wake up in the morning, you have like your Gatorade, your Pedialyte, whatever it is that you wanted, you knew now, like, okay, these are the things that I need to put on my rider from now on.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
awesome.
Or if you like, if that was what you were going to eat, if that was your meal, you need to make sure it was on there, because otherwise, you know, you'd be like blind drunk looking for a sandwich in the middle. You know, it's easy when you're in New York or LA or someone like that, but you're in the middle of the country at 3 a.m, nothing's open.
Oh yeah, and we went to some odd spots. Like it was the Grog Shop in Ohio. I remember specifically because I had never been there before. And when we were in Columbus, I had the spiciest Thai food ever.
I remember that specifically.
It was
got
so
that Thai
insane.
food, and I remember being on stage sweating. And you know, like for me, when I eat really spicy food, it just comes out. I eat the spicy food, and then half an hour later, I got to hit the bathroom. Like literally, everything inside of me comes out. Like that's the way my body deals with. And I remember being like, I'm going to be on stage after this unreal spicy food, and I'm going to die. Like I was sweating going on stage. That was good. I can't remember if that was Columbus.
It was either Columbus or it was like right outside. It was like somewhere around it, but I remember it was Ohio. It was whatever. I had a bunch of photos.
It was like the first stop on the tour, because we would drive out of New York. I do remember. Now you're reminding me, because I do remember packing the van, and then. What people don't understand is that when you leave, if you're touring in a van or in a bus, you have to pack everything that you need, all the merch and everything. You pack it to the brim. There's not a single space. Like literally, you have to figure out the pack, and then you have to unpack it and pack it again, because you're going to be doing the same thing in the middle of the night. You have to kind of remember how to pack it all. Otherwise, you're half in the bag trying to pack up a van that's like packed to the brim. And, you know, we didn't have to do it after the first time. You guys had to do it. So I remember doing it with you and Jeffrey. And then I remember you guys trying to get your skateboards in the van. Yeah. And there really wasn't room. And I was like, these motherfuckers with their fucking skateboards. You know what I mean? And this was like your one like peace of mind, the skateboards, having the skateboards there. Which, you know, of course I understand now. But back then I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, what the hell? I have a funny story about it, too. Right when we first went on tour was right when I first met my wife, Nadia. And she had given me this crazy contraption called an iPod. I don't know if you ever heard of them. And it was it was like this fucking thick. And there were all these songs that I remember just listening in the back of the bus, because I was like, holy shit, I just like kind of quit my job. I just met this girl. And now I'm just going on tour for the rest of the summer. Like I'm out for the next 3.5 weeks. Insane. By the way, still have that iPod, still has the music on it. And I remember the order of the songs that Nadia put on there. So it was just fun.
This was amazing.
It was fun doing like a little bit of research. I had some photos that I was going to bring out, but I decided not to for your sake. We'll just leave those away. But there were...
Are those the photos from LA when the guy comes out with his balls duct taped in the bikini?
No, I don't have. You know what? There was a lot that were blurred because clearly we were hammered most of the time because none of us were driving. But the other like funny ones that I have, one of the big ones is like you guys wearing presidential masks.
Oh, right.
Which I thought was kind of crazy because we're talking. This is like 16, 17 years ago.
I mean, like, we were doing the anti-war, anti-Bush tour with Napoleon solo, and we all came out in the Bush and Cheney, and I forget what the other, and Rumsfeld masks, and we would do that skit. This is like, and I remember doing it in Texas. thinking this is not going to go
Yeah,
over.
not gonna work.
And there were some hecklers there. I remember that. But then I remember being like, "You ain't from New York. You weren't there for 9/11. Don't come
Yeah,
at
you
me
don't
like
know.
you don't know. You want to try to pretend like you all know what's up with 9/11. You're living here in Texas, but it went over. We survived.
Yeah. I still have, so I have some photos. I still have the tour book that Jeffrey made with all the tour dates.
Yeah, I
And I'll
have
send you
those.
some screenshots and some other stuff that I saved. And then there's like a couple of other random things like the Back to One CD that you guys made. I still
Yeah.
have that as well as the merch from it. Like, you could buy the shirt and the CD. I think a bunch of stuff. I was trying to like find it all yesterday, but
That
of
was the
course.
biggest scam ever that we came up with on that tour. It wasn't a scam, but it was like good business, which was
Yeah.
we called it getting the yuppie food stamps, right? You want to take a $20
Yep.
bill out of somebody's hand without having to give them cash.
Yeah.
We give them like a shirt or a hat and a CD just to grab it all, right? That was the best. With those, and didn't we get somebody to sponsor that?
I
I don't
believe there
remember.
was. It was a rough one. I remember you specifically telling me to make my own mix CD because you were like, if you make these CDs, it's just 100% profit in your pocket. So I wound up bringing this jungle mix that I made probably 12 hours before we left and just ripped as many of those as I could. And those shirts from my friend Steve McCarthy from Maestro Instruments.
That's right. I
And all this
remember
stuff.
you had shirts. I was like, what is this guy? He's crazy.
I brought my own merch,
I
which, by
love
the
that
way,
though.
funny story. On my way to your studio in Hell's Kitchen, I had everything on a cart and wound up getting a ticket for spitting on the subway, which I was like, get the fuck out of here. I have a fucking cart with 200 t-shirts right now, lady. I'm sweating. I don't do well in the heat. I'm dripping. I'm already through my first shirt. I wasn't taking a cab to your house. I was taking the train. So I'm coming from Brooklyn with this cart with all my promo, all my t-shirts, all my CDs, my skateboard, and my little backpack with like a couple pairs of underwear and a jacket, thinking that like I was going to make it. Wound up getting a ticket, and I was like, sick. All right, this is going to be a fun couple weeks. Here we go. Let's take off. Let's make it work.
Was that the Back to One tour, or was that what was the first one, the Infinite Justice tour? Was that the one
Yeah.
with DJ Spooky?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
He came to a couple spots. He was on a couple of them. And I remember there was one, I think it was either the last or the first night we did the Hook in Red Hook, which was like, I had never even heard of this club. And for those who don't know, Red Hook is like this blue collar, like really rough, well, used to be, I guess. I think, and now there's an IKEA there. But back then there wasn't. And I remember just going to the Hook and being like, where the fuck are we right now? Like, we are in the middle of nowhere. And there's just this giant rave going on. You guys crushed it that night, too. That was fun.
It's funny. You remember things better than I do, which is kind of good.
Well, that's how it works. Teamwork, It works that way with Nadia and I. It's like as long as one of us has half the details, usually the other person can remember the other part of the details, and then you go from there. So
Yeah, someone started up Cool Keith and Wizzone Dissect the Style. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Cool Keith. Man, I haven't thought about Cool Keith in such a long time. You know whose name popped up the other day? I was talking to Zach from Sound Tribe Sector 9, and Logic popped into the thing. DJ Logic. I hadn't thought about him forever. Yeah, and I should have tried. Yeah. See what he's up to. He's still doing his thing, I guess.
Yeah, there was another guy that came with us too. I should have probably done a little more research before this on all the tours.
What on that? It was Dialect, right? Wasn't it Dialect? It was not that.
Yeah, and it was someone else. I don't remember. I forgot. Again, I could go back and forth and just have old man brain the whole time. But that was another. We had like a bunch of other guys that came with us. But that was That was like the first time I had ever like realized, holy shit, I can make this happen. Like you can reach out to people that you want to, convince them to bring you on tour, and learn. Like you guys basically were like the first of many mentors that I had that was like, this is how you do it. This is how you get into the business. I still even have the MPC that I got from you guys, the MPC 2000. So, and that was like the first, you guys were like the first studio I ever went to. Before I ever went to Chung King or any of the other, or D&D, it was like, this was like you had the studio in your house. And I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is where they make all the music on those turntables. This is where they practice. Like, this is how it's done. That's the drum machine. It was like my first insight into like, okay, this is how you do it. And this is how you do it yourself if you don't want to be on a big label. You can do like Manhattan Studios and just have your own space, soundproof the walls, and like just have that. Have
I mean,
a go at
it was so throw and go back then, and I think, you know, when you're growing up, grew up playing in rock and metal bands and stuff. So my idea of making it would be to go to a big studio, and you go track a record in the studio. And I had done that a bunch of times in rock bands, but I always found it super. It was never what I thought it would be. It was stressful. You could hear the money going. You know, as you were like, as the time is going by, you felt like all the money was coming out of your
Clock
pocket.
is ticking.
I wasn't. It was never super creative for me in that situation because you're like coming up with like the parts. You know, like I wasn't prepared. You just in your mind mentally, you don't realize like you got to have everything worked out. As a young person, you just weren't really thinking that way. You're just thinking like big studio, it's going to be awesome and blah 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 blah. And then, you know, as you start to be able to get your own gear, because that was just at the point where you really could start to buy all of your own gear and have your own studios and have DAT machines and DA88s and ways of recording music in a studio that you put together. I mean, our studio was put together with like chewing gum and duct tape. We had multiple boards, you know, we had multiple like consoles, could dove chain together. I think we had like a Soundcraft Ghost and a Yamaha something. The D88 machines, we were using Studio or Vision software before you could even record audio into a computer. It was just MIDI. So everything was like sort of linear. None of the MING+FS albums were made the way you make records today. They weren't made random access, like you could just go back and do parts. You had to start at the beginning, do your sections, go through. I mean, you could record, move things back and forth on the machine, but they were like linear mostly. It wasn't like, oh, let's cut and paste that section from that section and put it over there. And I think that that's how some of that music came out that way, which is like this linear weirdness down the road, sort of like skating.
Yeah.
Because skating, when you watch videos and you see people like do this like bunch of tricks, right? And they look super amazing. Oh, this guy's got this into this into this into this and this. If you do something like that, you know how many takes it took to get that clean take. That dude following you with a camera. But that's a linear thing. You actually have to hit those 5 tricks in order for it to work out. And that's kind of like how doing those MING+FS records were, where you had to like, it had to be the right pass. Otherwise, it wouldn't have. It didn't make it.
Like it's always one take. It's always one take, one try. Keep it going. Hope everything looks good. And you guys were the first ones also that had Reason. That was the first time I'd ever seen anyone use like a computer to make beats or to record, and that was also fun to me to watch the whole process of how you guys do it. It was it's been a ride. It's been a lot of fun watching the whole thing go down.
So let's talk about, you know, we come off tour, MING+FS disbands. You end up over at the DC, is it DC Shoes?
No, it was actually Times Square. I was working with my uncle doing lighting, staging, video walls for fashion shows, corporate industrial shows. And that's how I got the time off. And then I just, after hanging out with you guys, I realized, you know, like, fuck this. Like, I want to do something else. I want to figure out what it is that I want to do. And Nadia, my girlfriend, now wife at the time, was super supportive in saying, well, what is it that you want to do? And I said, well, you know, it's skateboarding and it's music. And like, these are the 2 things that I'm passionate about. And I got to figure out how I'm going to make this work for me and turn this into something. So at the time, I just started making like a shit ton of mixtapes and just kind of barraging every bar that I possibly could. And then on top of it, I got a job in Times Square. Billabong and Element opened this massive store.
That's what I was thinking of, was the Element store.
And I literally just kind of was like, all right. I walked in and the store was half done, and they'd already picked all these people to be managers and district managers. I knew nothing about retail at all. So I just said, you know what, cool. Yeah, sure, I'll take the stock boy job. I'm a college graduate and pretty fucking intelligent and can probably spell. Like, you know, like the boss I was talking to wasn't exactly the sharpest pencil in the box, but I was like, you know what, I can work my way through here. And the whole idea was I wanted to work my way from this retail side to the corporate side. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I knew one way or another I would do that. And I kind of, long story short, just weaseled my way through. And one of the big breakthroughs for me was I figured out how they were playing music, and they would play Sirius Satellite. And I decided that the store was separated into like a Billabong side and the Element side. Billabong being surf, Element being skateboarding. Element being Underworld Element, Harold Hunter, Julian Stranger, like OG, Cardiel, like just lots of skate. These guys were like combining hip hop, graffiti, and DJing and all my favorite things at the time. So I wanted to get in touch with the owner at that time. So what I figured I would do is I started playing my own mixes, and shout out Stretch Armstrong and Bob Beto, and playing 89 Tech 9, just playing a lot of the music that they were playing in the store. And that attracted a different group. And at the time, Times Square wasn't as Disney-like as it was. It was sort of in between that like Peep Show and Disney at the time. It was sort of, we were like right in the middle of the transition. And because we were open from 9 a.m. in the morning till midnight, 10, 11 in the morning, you get a lot of characters that would come in there. And a lot of record labels had their offices around there, and people would walk by and hear the music and say, well, who's playing that music? And they'd be like, oh, that's my boss over there. So what we wound up doing at the time is I didn't know that this was actually going to work, but I started soliciting record labels and saying, hey, I noticed you have an album that's coming out next week. I will play said album till midnight, and then everyone can go across the street and buy it at Virgin Megastore. That's when they had this, for those who don't know, this store called Virgin Megastore. You go there like Tower Records. And
it's so funny to say that, though.
You physically use this paper to buy records, CDs, and vinyl. And one of the biggest ones that we did was Redman had this album, Red Gone Wild, that was coming out. So we had him come in at 11, and Kinetic Energy from the Arsonists was our security guard. So we had this whole like hip hop connection there. And the way we would work it was at 11 o'clock, the artist would come in, we'd play the album. He would sign only merchandise that you purchased at the store, and I would make it just the skateboards. So like the sales on the skateboard side would go up. So kind of partnering with everyone.
You learned that shit from us. See, that's some straight up MING+FS stuff right there.
That's hustle, man. It's like the layers of hustle. And then I added one other layer to it, and I said, I don't want the CDs. I want all the vinyl. So I want all the, I'll play whatever album you want. And some were good, some were bad. But I wanted all this stuff on vinyl. And that was the big thing for me. And the reason why I had so many records was just from college radio and those experiences. And like starting that I learned from you guys is just like hustling and trying to get it going. So from there, we kind of moved.
Let me pause you 1 second, because what's important about this hustle, right? And it's not a hustle like stealing from people. It's the hustle of like, figuring out how to get your talent out there and make it work. With MING+FS, one of the things we would find on tour is that, people would come up to with like bootleg merchandise and burn CDs and want us to sign that shit. And we would be like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not signing. You're basically letting us know that you're stealing from us. I'm not signing that shit. Buy something and I'll sign it. Like, it used to amaze me, right? Didn't that amaze you? Like, people would come up. Our best thing though was when we did the thongs, because people would come up, buy the thongs, and then put them on and want us to sign the thongs. That was the biggest. That was a good one.
That was most of the photos that I have from the tour. I wasn't going to say it. Hey, you said it. That's most of the photos I have from the tour, which I'll share with you at another point in time. But those were a few that I found. But it was fun. So long story short, after making this connection with all the record labels, we started to move on. And the idea was that I was sort of growing out of the relationship with, and I met a lot of amazing people that I'm still friends with to this day, but I wasn't getting the attention I wanted from the corporate level because I was doing such a great job. I literally started as the stock boy and was now the general manager of this $40 million a year store, the largest store that they had. And I was trying to move on to the corporate side to do marketing. And this guy, John Gilly, who worked for Element, was super instrumental in like being that next mentor and like moving me into the like that business side of like, well, this is how things are done. And if you want to do marketing, then, this is what you need to do. And once again, you'll hear this story constantly pop up. It's always about Nadia and her helping me. And her big thing was helping me write again, not only in this point, but now helping me figure out how a marketing plan should look and what we should send. Long story short, that didn't really fan out the way I wanted, and they kind of manipulated my marketing plan and gave it to someone else in New York to move forward with. So I was frustrated and looking for an out, and a friend of mine, this guy Dave Seltzer, was also working at Vans, and he said, hey, there's this new opportunity that's going to come up there. Do you potentially want to take this? Or, do you want to take a meeting about it? So literally Nadia, again, helped me fix my resume. Shocker. Behind every good man is a better woman. So that's the other side of this
That's
story.
the truth. That's the truth.
We all know this. So
Especially for us gully motherfuckers.
that's right. That's right. We need that, man. We need that rock. So basically, I sent the resume to Dave, and he sent it to Steve Van Doren, who's the owner of Vans. And literally less than 24 hours, I got this call, and I was beefing with the guys at the store because I was the general manager. I had this 12 to 9 shift, so it literally fucks your whole day up. You can't do anything before work. You go into work at noon. You don't get out till 9 p.m. So and you still have to count out registers. It was like it's just this nightmare schedule, and I'm not making millions of dollars at this point. So it's like I live in the greatest city in the world, and I have nothing to do. I have the greatest woman in the world, and I can't even hang out with her unless it's before 10:30 in the morning, and late. It just wasn't working for me, and I needed an out. And I literally got this phone message on like my old Razor flip phone. Remember those?
Yeah.
You had to like text the messages. And I got this message, and it was from Steve Van Doren saying he liked my resume and wanted to talk. And I thought he was full of shit, and just started laughing. So I called him back, and like we talked, and I'll keep this part of the story short because it could go on forever. We talked for almost 5 hours. My general manager kept hitting me up like, "Where are you? We need you." And Steve and I talked, and he was like, "I think you're amazing. I want to hire you. I'd like to fly you out to California tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think you're full of shit." I just had a meeting with Mass Appeal magazine. Fair enough. They were also in Red Hook, Brooklyn,
Right.
at that same spot, right there by the Hook where you guys DJ'd. And they had kind of been jerking me around, and I'd been jerked around by Brooklyn Limited Music, like all these labels and magazines and Double XL. And I was just kind of like jaded on a bunch of things. And I was like, I don't fucking believe you. Like you're going to fucking fly me out just to talk? Like, whatever. Okay, cool, man. And then literally his secretary called me 2 hours later to set up that flight. And I couldn't actually take it because I couldn't just leave work without knowing that this was actually going to happen. So Steve called me back and said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm coming out there." And 2 weeks later, and that's when they had started the relationship with the Maloof brothers and opened up that skate park in Flushing, Queens, with the Maloof Cup. So Steve came out there, and we talked for a little bit and told me about this idea about this like warehouse that him and the president now, Doug Palladini, were coming up with. And essentially it was like this community hub for everyone in New York. They wanted to put their stake in the ground, and the way they were going to do it was with this warehouse where they were going to showcase music, art, skateboarding, and street culture. And they were looking for someone who had this background of like music, as well as like club promotion and skateboarding and DJing. And it just kind of worked out perfectly. And that really like catapulted me to like a whole new level of, again, meeting Steve Van Doren and like having like that third chapter of meeting a mentor. And now Steve became that third person that I started working with, who literally changed my entire life. And because of that, I've had the opportunity of changing millions of people's lives and helping all these people because he provided these opportunities and doors to do all this great stuff.
Let's talk about that. Talk about one of the things that I was amazed with when we had caught up. I always thought of Vans as, like the seminal skate shoe and, all that part of it. And me being an artist, we used to get a lot of free stuff, from Burton, from, Element, from, MING+FS, you name it. If it was a cool company at that time during 90s hip hop, we were getting free shit from them, because it was part of the culture. So my understanding of the brand was just like a real, skate. The real deal is like the real skate shoe. But what's going on there is so much more than merchandise, and what you're doing is so much more than merchandise. And that's really what I got super interested in like talking about, which was like developing skate parks and opportunities in places all over the country and all over the world, really. I don't even like it. To me, it's amazing because I remember the idea of someplace having a skate park would be like the wrong people moved into your neighborhood. Yeah. That's how skate parks were like seen. Like, oh no, there goes the neighborhood. They're going to put a skateboard park here. Because they would always be like under a bridge. Someone made it like under an overpass, and a bunch of people would like build their own thing until the cops took it down. Or somebody, like obviously in LA, people would have they'd have the empty pool and people would skate the pools and all that. Where I grew up, we had BMX. So we would because it was tons of fields and stuff, everyone would ride their bikes and, go to a construction site and set up jumps and light shit on fire and, jump it in your bike, do it, all that kind of stuff. Well, I wasn't much of a skating thing, but so the skating culture and in the BMX culture, when that converged for me a little bit more, was like when I was in the city. When I moved to Manhattan, then I could see the same culture that I saw in BMX, I was seeing in skate culture, and like people skating all kinds of weird random places in Williamsburg, and places that no one would go to at the time. No one went to Williamsburg. I remember going to see
Nope.
Dr. Israel in Williamsburg. He was this dread, like kickboxer. We wanted him to work on an album with us, and he's walking around the streets of Williamsburg, which were like covered in glass, barefoot, because he was on his way to his kickboxing class. That place was gully, and now it's like more expensive than Manhattan. But so talk about getting involved and how the outreach of Vans allows you sort of like to bring skate park culture and skate parks to different places. Let's talk about that a bit.
So the idea was, we have like a bunch of different things. Like the first big one, or the most recent, is Vans Park Series. So the idea is they're building parks around the world, then having these world-class contests where they bring everyone in, and then we leave the park as a legacy skate park. So they have this park there forever for all the kids. And we've done Sao Paulo, Brazil. We've done right outside in Shells, outside of Paris, France. There's one that they just built in Utah, and there's a few more that they're building around the world, which is a really big thing. Through Nadia, Nadia's from Barbados, I've had the opportunity to go there and help this guy Paul with his DIY, which is, we started, again, like you were talking about, building these parks, this small DIY that's now they have a huge skate park in Barbados. And we were always joking, laughing that we said we wanted to move to Barbados, open a skate park, and like teach tourist kids lessons, but now skateboarding is becoming this massive, like, it's not just, you're not the unpopular kid at school who gets beat up for skateboarding. Skateboarding is huge right now, and everybody's doing it. It's big. It's kind of, it's amazing to just see the transformation it's taken. And through working at Vans, I've had the opportunity. We've just helped build a skate park in Kingston, and we helped build the rec center there. And then in Barbados, what I did for Go Skateboarding Day last year was I bought 50 completes. I bought the parts for 50 complete skateboards. I invited everyone at Vans headquarters, because I now live in Long Beach, California, and work at the Vans corporate headquarters. And we had all the employees build skateboards. So they learned how to build a skateboard. And then we had skateboard lessons. So everyone who'd never skateboarded at work could skateboard and learn how to skate. And then we took those boards and then shipped them to Barbados. So it was like 20 of the skateboards were slightly used because everyone got to use them, and and like their basic tricks, just pumping and pushing. And then through that, I got to now send 50 boards to this grand opening of the skate park. So every kid not only got a skateboard, but they got shoes, they got board shorts, and they got helmets. So now it's almost like, here's the starter kit to go skateboard. Like, we want you, let's see what you can do. Like, get out there and have fun, because that's really what it's all about. It's this new, it's not this new sport, but it's like people are starting to realize, like, I don't need anyone else to do it. I don't need a field or like some place to do it. Like, I can literally walk outside my house and meet millions of people from all over the world. Like, that's the joke about skateboarding, is like, we know someone in every city everywhere. It's like this secret society. And if you're part of it, you know where the skate park is. And if you go there, chances are you can find someone, meet up with them, and they will let you stay at their house. They will also cook food for you. Like, there's like,
it's like hardcore and punk culture. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We used to sell a ton of mixtapes through skate shops.
Yeah.
That was like another place for us to sell. Like, I was always looking for these like micro communities, and skate shops was like another like before, when record stores were kind of going away, but skate shops were the next micro community of like-minded people who listened to very similar music, whether it was hip-hop or punk or underground shit. So you could sell diverse mixtapes through those stores, and they would, you'd sell them 10, or even put them on consignment.
Yeah.
I would just like send out 500 tapes around the country to skate shops. I wasn't even skating at the time. So it is a network. It's a crazy network.
And it just keeps growing and growing. And as we go, my goal is to literally have like this, a friend in every city around the world. So no matter where you go, if you hit me up, I'm like, oh, I got a guy. This is the dude, hit him up. And it's been fun to like use skateboarding as this vehicle to kind of push me around. And now, well, not now because we're not going anywhere, but before that, I started, kind of this resurgence of DJing again. And now DJing a lot of the after parties for those bigger events that Vans is doing. So I kind of get to showcase this rad 90s hip hop and drum and bass to this now resurging. Like people are back into that 90s. Like I'm suddenly cool again. Fatigues and 90s hip hop and Raga Jungle are cool. So it's like I'm back on the map as like this dude who knows what's going on. Which nothing's changed. It's still the same shit. Still doing the same stuff.
I mean, it's golden era hip hop, golden era, drum, jungle, and drum and bass. So if you have it, you have it. I mean, I have none of those records anymore. I traded all my records. I gave them to some guy who worked at IKEA. Like when I was moving from Hell's Kitchen to my next place, I had about 5,000 records, and I wanted to get rid of them, and I wanted to give them away. I didn't want to sell them because I didn't want people to pick and choose the records. I want to spend that time. So I don't remember how I did this, but I posted somewhere like, got 5,000 records, have to come and pick them up in one shot, no picking through the records, no dumping them on the street. And some weird dude with these really thick glasses came, and I could tell that he was a digger, but I was like, I don't care, let him dig it home. Yeah, and it turned out that he worked at the Container Store. And he was like, dude, if you ever need anything from the Container Store, I get like a mad discount there. And I was like, you know what, dude? I do need things from the Container Store because I'm moving into a new apartment.
Let's trade.
And my girlfriend and I, who's now my wife, like the same thing. We went and just got like all this Container Store shit for our new closet when we moved to. He got all these great records, but I got new closets.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think that was a bad deal, and I think he had gotten the better deal on that one.
But let me tell you holistically, though, don't forget, like, this is where we had gone from doing all vinyl stuff to, being digital turntable stuff. So at that point, my mind had already moved on to like the digital turntable world and the world of like digital music, because lugging those records around the country for 10 years, really, I was done with that. And then MING+FS was finished. I was with this new girlfriend. I was like, I don't want to bring these records. They felt like baggage to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some records in there. There's like all the jungle stuff that I wish I had now, the suburban bass stuff, like Ray Keith, just stuff that you can't find digitally anymore. I wish I had it, but I don't know that I really wish I physically had it. I wish I had it digitally. And I remember we had Jeffrey transfer a ton of records onto a drive, but that drive disappeared, and I wonder where it went. But,
I'll make you a deal. I have those records, and I will digitize them for you if you give me the stuff you got from the Container Store. So we do like a full circle. Let's do like a full circle.
I don't have the shit from the Container Store anymore.
Of stuff.
I just want all those records. I just want all those records. I can give you something else. I'll give you advice.
Fair enough. I like that.
Yo, is Nadia there?
I don't know. Nadia, are you around? Yeah, she's here. I see her coming around.
I'm
bringing
in the real heat now.
That's right.
Who's the team? I'm the team.
Yeah, there she is.
Yo, it's been
forever you look the same as yesterday. Holy cow.
Black don't crack. We already know that.
That's what they say.
That's right.
It's funny. It's because you've been around for almost the whole process since I've known Dave, and it's funny to see all of us moving on to different things as we moved on into history. But the other day you posted something that really meant a lot to me, and it was about being black in the punk rock, and music scene, and how you've been treated. Obviously it's come up because of everything that's going on, but the way that you described your experience, and still to this day it's probably the same experience, as being sort of this odd person out, fan of the music, you feel at home with the music, but people are always kind of separating you from the music. I had a friend in high school who had the same exact experience, and it's because I never thought of her as any different. When she explained to me one day, or made a comment about, this is exactly how she said it, and it took me a minute to figure it out. We were hanging out one day, I guess we had come back from a show, it was maybe the Hardcore Super Bowl or some shit like that, in the city. We lived in Long Island, and she said to me, "You don't care, do you?" I was like, "What do you mean I don't care?" care about what? She was like, you don't care, you know. And I was like, no, I don't know. What do you mean? Like, I thought she meant like I didn't care about her as a friend or something like that, or like something I had said, you know. She's like, you don't care that I'm black. And I was so, I don't know, taken back by the like whiteness of myself to not like. I was like, well, what do you mean by that? Because you know, like you're like family with everybody, you know what I mean? Like, but because her experience was, even though I'm down with everybody and I'm down with the music and that's my thing, we'd go to a metal show and, you know, and I guess people would look at her funny and give her the eyes that I didn't notice because I wasn't paying attention. Now, of course, after that, I did notice and I did pay attention, and it changed everything for me in a lot of ways. But I almost want you to read your post because it's so perfect. But like, it's an important thing to talk about, because I think right now, with everything that's turning back up again and people are turning the light on stuff and you know, like talking about race relations and talking about how, you know, overt and covert racism, I think what you're talking about is so covert for people who don't think that they're racist, who don't feel negative energy towards people of color, different nationalities, but don't notice the things, what it means not to be white, right? What it means not to actually have to feel that. And so so speak on your post a little bit, if you don't mind.
I mean, I could read it verbatim. I mean, it took me a long, like, I literally wrote like probably a novel of like all the points I wanted to cover. And I mean, I can backtrack. Like, I wasn't even going to post anything. I wasn't going to say anything. You know, it was really, really hard. And I am still mentally struggling through this whole thing of what's happening. And I have done this even back in New York, you know, marching and dealing with it. But, you know, somehow, some way, maybe it's, you put the pandemic on top of that, it's like all compounded. It's like a mental screw up. So I wasn't even going to post anything. I saw all my friends posting, you know, because they're good allies out there, posting everything that they can. And then I had a conversation with my mom, not my mom, my sister, and my cousin in Barbados. And they're like, you have a different perspective, because look at most of your friends, look at the things you're into. You follow a lot of bands and you follow a lot of like white, quote unquote, white culture.
Yeah.
So you have a unique perspective that people might not want to address race or don't know how to address race, and you can give them that perspective. And so I came up with distilling all of that down into the post that I did, where, you know, just literally going to a show and there being people who would be looking at you weird, or might, you know, give you a shoulder bump on the way to the bar or something like that, and just kind of just stare at you like you're a unicorn. And I've been all over the world and have been stared at like a unicorn all of my life. But
no offense, you are a bit of a unicorn, and that's a good thing. My daughter is like a huge unicorn fan. But that concept, like, because Dave and I were talking about it briefly, which is, you know, my whole music background is about Black culture, and all music is basically Black culture. Yeah. And Black art, all this stuff is it permeates my being. Like, but I've never been to a show, hip hop show, whatever, reggae show, whatever it may be, and never felt out of place. You know, if I'm the weird gangly white dude at a reggae show, I'm cool with that. Right. And I think that's a white privilege thing, which is like, you know, I don't feel out of place. I don't feel out of place anywhere I go. I mean, I live in Harlem now. I felt a little out of place when I first moved to Harlem, because that was the first time I was primarily living in a place where there were very few white people, and also there were people who were angry that I was there. So that was the first time in my life where I was like, oh, this is really in my face now. Okay, now I know what it's like to be the other way around, which is people are angry that you're there because for a different reason.
And I mean, also, when you're talking about reggae versus like a hip hop culture, like, I think a lot of the Caribbean culture, because we're so mixed up, that it's kind of not, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, that's that white dude. You know, it's not even a thing, you know, whereas like, depending on what underground shows you go in hip hop, it's kind of like, I guess he knows somebody. That's why he's here. And then it's kind of like, all right, move on, you know.
He must be an A&R.
Yeah. But like,
He
try to
must
go
be
to
A&R,
like,
right?
yeah. Somebody's getting signed today, right? Yeah. No, but like, think about going to like an underground punk show when I was younger. And I mean, of course, as I get older and older and more aware of these things, the harder and harder it got. But like, going to like a CBGB show and you didn't know, you're like, well, is this a trad skinhead band or is it a real skinhead band? You know, and even then you're still like, I'm not sure. Like, even going to like, geez, I remember going to like a Bad Religion show and getting like these stares from these guys. Because again, on top of that, you're primarily in like a white male show.
Right.
It's just another level of being female and a black female at those shows and wanting to head towards the pit. And you're like, not even trying to think about it. And then as you get older, you're like, oh my God, like, was that extra aggression against me? Like, was it extra aggression when, you know, I was squeezed out of an area? Like, so all of that kind of stuff does affect you. Whereas, you know, your friends around you might have never experienced that, or maybe at a lesser scale. So, you know, like I said, it comes with age and recognizing what the things you have to go through. But, you know, at the same time, you can't let it affect you, because all that music meant so much to me. You know, it means everything to me. It literally saved my life. I would not be here on this planet if I did not discover the music I did. Like, thanks, big up to Soundgarden and how much they have saved my life and brought me into rediscovering music. I mean, I grew up with music all my life. My parents played tons of music of all styles. Like, yeah, I can sing Garth Brooks, you know, till the cows come home. Thanks, Mom, for all of that. But, you know, like, so I had that, but it was like, then when I needed it the most, discovering a whole new genre of music brought me right back into learning and wanting to like involve myself in music all over again. So if I had to let just a few assholes at shows affect me because I was the black girl, then who knows what path I would have taken. So, you know, you kind of have to like let it go, but it's sad that you have to do that. You have to kind of say, well, you know what, screw it. People are going to be racist and I'm just going to have to deal with it. Like, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
You know, I thought one thing that's it is 100%. I'm 100% with you. One thing that I think is interesting, and maybe it's just population density in the way, the makeup of America and just that kind of thing, but, you know, just the ratios of diversity at shows and how that, you know, because I've known, you know, you go to a hip-hop show, it's primarily white people, depending on the style of hip-hop and where you see it, but it's always been primarily white people. You know, you go to a good underground KRS-One show, and there's a really good mix of people because everybody was trying to be an MC and show, you know, everyone's like, wants to get on the mic and all that kind of thing. But, you know, and a reggae show is always very, very mixed, very, you know, because there's, you know, everyone comes out, everyone from the different islands comes out. It's not just a Jamaican thing. It's like, and, you know, you go and you're like, oh my God, where did all these people come from?
So I love my culture.
As a kid, when I would come up from Long Island going into the hardcore Super Bowl, all of a sudden there would be my people as well. You know, people in their pin pants and their Doc Martens and whatever. And I used to hang out with this, I guess he was a black skinhead because that's what he called himself. His name was Phil. He would come in with the rings, you know, spikes on his fingers, and he had the pin black jeans and his leather jacket. And he was hardcore. I mean, he was like a tough dude. Yeah. I remember when I'd shake Phil's hand, I would think to myself, he's such a large individual that he could just crinkle me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as a man, you don't often think to yourself, like, this other man could kill me in a second. But he was like, you know, we would go to these shows moshing around, and Phil would, you know, he'd be in the middle, just like you're saying, like because everyone would like want to like get up with Phil because Phil was huge. And I wonder, and I never thought of it, but I think he owned the blackness of being a hardcore person in a black, you know, like in that, because there wouldn't be a lot of people. Yeah, but in the bands there'd be mixed bands. There, you know, Bad Brains. There'd be all these different bands that were mixed personnel. I was always surprised there was less black people in the city shows. Mm-hmm. I expected to come in and it would be like a really diverse show, because if you came in, like if I go see Fishbone in the city, I'd expect, okay, this is going to be a different show than when I saw Fishbone in Stony Brook University.
Yeah.
But no, it would be the same crowd. It would be the same
Yeah.
sort of like, even though Fishbone is basically ripping off soul records and mixing it with punk rock. I mean, like, you can go, now that I'm older, Dave, we should talk about digging, but now that I'm older, I hear all of the records that Fishbone stole to make their records. And back then, as a white kid, I was like, oh my God, this is the most funky shit ever. And then you realize later on, they're like, this is verbatim other music.
Well, that's where they started, right? Isn't that like they started with like the soul and jazz, kind of just like Bad Brains did, and they're like, wait, what's this sound? And then incorporate the two, you know?
Yeah,
Which
totally.
is always what I like to say is like the two things you put together make the best music. I mean, geez, if you want to talk about hip hop, then talk about Beastie Boys and where they started and what they combined, and then you put the two together. I mean, we won't talk about like the Limp Bizkits out there, but
that's so rad.
That's program rock. I think eventually, once Dave and I talked about this too, because he was whining a little bit the other day to me about where music is going, and there's not this like legacy of new music. And my from being in the music business long enough, in any business, when there's an underground thing that happens, or a new thing that happens, or creation of something new, once corporations and people learn how to monetize that and get every single cent out of that thing, the music becomes program or homogenized. If it's like, you know, food, whatever, culture, it becomes homogenized in such a way that it reaches the maximum amount of people for that style. That's where you get the Limp Bizkits of the world, and that's where you get these things that are like hit a lot more people, aren't seen as credible by the real fans, but they sell an unbelievable amount of tickets and merch and all this other stuff. It's because it hits a large swath of people. And so, you know, we're all sort of sad when, like, for me, that happened with Red Hot Chili Peppers. I loved Red Hot Chili Peppers up until maybe Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and then that was it for me. Then the rest of the world discovered the Chili Peppers, and they became bigger, as you know, like Metallica, right?
Yeah. But I mean, also, what, you know, fast forward to today, there's a lot of new music that, and I think, you know, the shift out of the radio culture into, you know, streaming services and, you know, the Spotify's and SoundClouds of the world, there's a lot more risk in what people are doing in all genres of music. And you're also seeing a good cross-section of many different people making that music and coming together to make that music. I mean, you have like Filipino DJs and like rappers out there who are making some amazing music, and you have like black girls who are heading up metal bands who are also making amazing music. And it's you kind of have to still dig for it, but it's becoming bigger and bigger that they're just crossing over. I mean, you even see it in some of like the younger rappers today, regardless if you like their music or not, they're definitely crossing into different parts of genres and stuff, you know, and how they dress and what they do and what they say and what they listen to and what they're inspired by. So
the question is it, you know, it's large and it's genre bending, but is it timeless? That's kind of the, does it have the timeless factor of, let's say, like a Black Sabbath or a Stevie Wonder or a James Brown or a Steel Pulse? You know, like those artists are never going to go, never. It will never go away. They're always like dipping your bread in the original gravy and all that. And Dave, I know you've been like, we have 5 minutes left, so I want to get to, in the last 2 minutes, I want to do this fast question thing. And since you're both sitting there, I'm going to ask you both to answer, and don't answer the same question. Like, just don't listen to each other, just answer. All right? I do this every time.
Okay.
All right. And faith or science? Nadia, you start.
science. Definitely science. 100%.
Chopper?
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to go with science as well, but for argument's sake, I'll say faith, just to fuck with everybody.
No. We're not going to play like that. Don't.
Okay, fine. Science. 100%
we already know
science.
who wears the pants. We already know that. We don't need that.
Really? Come on,
you don't need to prove that.
Did you listen to the first 50 minutes? It's all about I was an idiot until I met this woman and she did everything behind the scenes. So that's why we're here now.
You know, to your credit and to both of you both, what I love about the two of you is that you fought together. I mean, my girlfriend and I, she's my wife now, we have 2 kids. We did the same thing.
Yeah.
Different stages of our life, but like, it always takes somebody to believe in your creativity and to allow you to take chances that lets you go out and do that extra thing that you might not have done if somebody wasn't like, just fucking call them. Just do
Yeah.
it. You can do
Exactly.
this. You can do this. And you've done so many crazy good things, Dave. It's it's pretty amazing. So you can't give her all the credit. You can give her a lot of credit. You still have to show
pushed
up.
him off the edge. I pushed him off the edge so he can fly, right?
Of
That's
course.
how it works.
Yeah, a slight nudge.
A slight nudge. All right, let me get these in. Raver Festival.
Rave.
You gotta do it at the same time. It's 1, 2, 3 answer. That's how we'll do it from now on.
Ocean, lake, or desert?
Ocean.
All right. Acid or mushrooms?
Mushrooms.
Big room or small room?
Big room.
Oh, a small room.
Small room. I want the big room. That's why it works.
All right. What's your superpower?
Oh, superpower? Seeing through people. 100%. Yeah, I can see from a mile away danger coming at me.
Ooh, that's a good one. My superpower is going into any record store where there's thousands of records and knowing which crate has that one record that I've been looking for forever. That's
There
it
you
right
go.
there. Yeah, right.
How would you incorrectly describe your job?
Oof.
I got to see who's watching first before I answer that one.
I know, like what? Incorrectly describing my job. Shit.
Meeting for the meeting. About the meeting. Let's go to the meeting. Do you guys want to have a meeting? All right, let's set up a meeting.
Oh, working for the real estate cigarette company. That's what I do.
Ooh.
What animal should survive if only one can survive?
Crows.
Dogs.
Crows are really smart. People don't know that.
They're extremely sorry. My favorite animal. I got
I was
about
gonna
3
say-
tattoos on them.
Cat or dog? You already said.
Dogs.
If not music, then what?
Art.
Yeah, fair enough. Art.
Favorite meal?
Pizza.
Dumplings.
Hunter or gatherer?
New York pizza. Wait,
Oh,
yeah.
hunter or gatherer? Gatherer.
Hunter.
What's the last gift you gave someone?
Records.
What's the last gift I gave? Alcohol. Shit.
Do you have being from New York, do you have a favorite deli?
Ooh.
I have a favorite sandwich. Like a
Veselka. Does that count?
yeah, Vaselka would work. That would
All right,
work.
I'll give you
That's
that.
noodle
I'll give
soup.
you that.
Best.
Favorite metal band?
Oh, today? Today would have to be, I'm listening to Old School Mastodon again. Going back there, so I'll just say today. But of all time, Black Sabbath, 100%.
Yeah, black.
All right, the last one. What genre are the Talking Heads?
Ooh, that's a hard question. You want to go
Universal.
no wave, but that's not
No
really
wave.
no wave.
All right, guys, we have less than 30 seconds. This was amazing. This is the first one where I had two people on at the same time, but two people who make a better one. So this was great.
That's right. Get into the
I hope to see you guys soon. I'll post this up. Usually, my internet is messed up right now, so what I usually do is I'll edit this a little bit, cut off the ends to get rid of the extra stuff, and I repost it, and I'll send you links to all that later on. But thank you so much. Have an amazing weekend. Be safe.
Yeah.
Speak to you soon, guys.
Be safe.